Hello all. I've been getting an abundance of emails, so thank you for that. There's talk of this great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. Now, I don't really know much about the signs of the stars and the zodiac and things, but I am loosely aware. I am very aware that planetary bodies do affect human consciousness, and you all know this yourselves. Now, you can deny it, but that would be the height of willful ignorance, because on a nice sunny day when the sun is gracing your skin, you feel good. In the middle of winter, when the sun is low on the horizon and it's cold, you don't feel so good. So these are just simple observances. The moon affects the female menstrual cycle. The moon affects the ego. When the moon is waxing, the ego gains strength, and when it's waning, it has less strength. And it will affect individuals based on the individual's makeup. So if an individual is neurotic, so when there's a full moon, you'll be more neurotic. I'm a Scorpio, and apparently the Scorpions is linked to the reproductive regions. So when it's a full moon, there's how do I put this without sounding filthy? There are certain aspects of my individual nature that peak, and I've been aware of this for some time. But that doesn't mean it's the same for everybody. You're all individuals. You work it out yourself. Just watch yourself. Watch the mind, and then you'll catch it, and you'll go, ah. Everything's connected. Nothing is separate. And I'm going to have to try and prove this with mathematics, and I'll do a video about it to try and explain how there are cosmic coincidences with regards to the sizes of things that just cannot be ignored. Nothing is just a coincidence, as science would have you believe. And we've got this great conjunction. Now, esoterically, Jupiter is about wealth, about accumulation, but the Jupiterians don't care about the effects of accumulation, so it's greed. Whereas Saturn, which gets a bad rap really, and if you know the truth about Saturn, it was our original sun. I'll speak about that in a bit more detail shortly. But Saturn is not about material wealth. Saturn is more about spiritual wealth, the wealth of consciousness, to experience life more fully, to be involved in it, to co-create with it. Now, these things aren't revealed straight away. These things are revealed slowly over a period of time, because there comes a great deal of responsibility with it. Now, you cannot remove poverty with money. You can't. Poverty is caused by a state of mind. You might have heard the saying, poverty is not a place, it's the people. Now, I've been to some of the poorest countries on the planet, and one of the poorest is India. It has a wealth of riches, but the size of its population, and because of humans living with a Jupiterian outlook, the wealth doesn't get to the people that need it most. But when I was there, I did some anti-piracy work, and I was working in India for 8 months, and managed to get a bit of time ashore and enjoyed the delights of India. It's a crazy place. But one thing I did notice that struck me was that they watch the normal people, the poor people in the poorest parts of Mumbai or Ratnagiri or Dabhol, Cochin. Those are the cities I went to. They watch, they watch, but they don't judge. Very it's like a child watching something. They're transfixed, and you can dance around and pull funny faces. They don't react, but they don't look at you with disdain either. It's a very curious thing, and they don't seem to be bothered by their poverty. It's like they live in an abstract kind of place. And it's just, it might have been a cultural thing, but it's just something I observed. And in my own life, I've had some very well-paying jobs. And I've bought all the toys. And I've had a trimaran boat, Corvettes, motorbikes that normal mortals can't afford. And I realised that those things, the pursuit of them, was a vanity, a greed, and then when you have it, they don't bring any joy. You've got it now. What next? And then you've got to upkeep it. You've got to maintain it, and then you feel obliged to use it, and then it starts to own you, and you're not so free after all. You think these toys, these material things, are going to somehow improve your life, and the amount of energy you expend to accumulate these material things. And it was just over a year ago where I pretty much walked away from everything, and I had an 18-ton truck and a motorbike in the back of it, and tools and clothes, and that was pretty much it. I didn't take any of my old military memorabilia, medals, pictures. Just wasn't interested in that anymore. It was the past. I didn't even know who that was anymore. I didn't want to know who it was. It's just, I'd recognised that it was just a story that I'd been telling myself, and it just made no sense to keep wearing that mask. See? So then you're like, well, I'm naked now. But of course I knew I wasn't, because I'd been well informed from within. And then you start to understand the nature of things. And there's a bit of research tied up in this. I've looked into one of the best ones that you should all look at this, and I highly recommend it, and that is the Thunderbolts Project on YouTube. And these guys are bona fide scientists and bona fide researchers. And what I mean by that is that because something sounds so outlandish, they don't just blow it off, because that's the height of arrogance and willful ignorance. Is that these guys are not scared of having their belief systems shattered, and it's taken them down some very interesting roads. So I would encourage you all to look it up on YouTube. It's called the Thunderbolts Project, and understand that everything is electric. Electric is the father. And they talk about Saturn, and Saturn was the Earth's original sun. Now, this planet has been in a state of a struggle, so to speak. It's in survival mode, and you have this life-death cycle, because the only way life can survive on this planet is that if it reproduces itself. But it wasn't always like that on this planet. Now, I just want you to use logic and reason, okay? If this solar system has been like this for millions and millions and millions of years, billions of years, then our genetic language, the Word of God, our genetics, our DNA would have developed us to exist in harmony with the nature of this current reality. So if that's the case, then our skin would not burn in the sun. We would not be blinded by the sun's light when we look at it. Because our genetics would have adapted us for the environment. But what happens if our environment was completely different? And it's well known that vegetation, plant life, grows very healthily, very quickly in a purple light or an ultraviolet light. And Saturn, when it was our star, it gave off a purple light. And this is what the singer Prince was on about when he was singing about purple rain. It wasn't just rain from the sky, so to speak. It was the rain of purple, like the Purple King. And the monarchies, they used to wear purple to express their importance, because nobody else could afford the colour purple. They used to make it from these strange shellfish. Anyway, so this planet used to be in the heliosphere of Saturn when it was a sun. The current sun came along and there was massive discharges and it caused all sorts of problems. And then the heliosphere is like, you got Saturn, the planet, when it was a sun, and it had like a shield around it, like a bubble, like an egg, cosmic egg, and everything was purple. But the light wasn't direct light, it was diffuse light, so it diffused everywhere, so there was no day or night. And when this was in history, I couldn't put a date on it, but it was still within human memory, and it was recorded in mythology. And then the current sun came into the picture and caused havoc in the solar system, or the solar system that existed then. Scattered the planets everywhere, made them wander all over the shop. And also, and that's why they don't all spin the same way, it's all a bit odd. And then the heliosphere from Saturn disappeared. Now when you're inside a heliosphere like Saturn's, you couldn't see the stars. You could only see the bodies, the wandering bodies of the planets. And then that heliosphere collapsed, and then we could see the stars. Now there is a transition going on, okay? There is a transition of power. Now power is not... real power has nothing to do with how much money you have, or how many guns you have, or how big your army is. That's a egotistical might is right. I've got more money than you, so I've got better lawyers. Even though you're right, I will still beat you down in court because I can afford it and you can't. There's no justice in such a system. It's fucking corrupt. And we all know that. So you've got these corporations. Now, corp means dead. So a corporation is a legal living entity. So all the wealth that goes to a corporation stays with the corporation because it's a legal living entity and it can't die. And CEOs come and go. And they accumulate such wealth that they can't be challenged in the courts of justice. Look at the court cases against companies like Monsanto. Well, all they've done now is got rid of the name of Monsanto and stick another label on it. You know, it's still the same corporation, it's just changed its name. But there is a shift, there is a paradigm shift going on. Now, the people with the wealth that live in the old system, that use the old system to ingratiate themselves with more power, because it's not about money for them now, it's about power, it's about control. And they can control governments and manipulate governments. And this is what they've warned about, you know, the military-industrial complex. But they're losing control. They are losing control of humanity. They've had control for so long. They had it initially with religion. Right, we'll control them with religion, so they use religion. And that worked. A couple of thousand years, well, longer than that, of just religion. The fear of God. And then people, you know, then they had to educate people because the Industrial Revolution, we can't have idiots anymore. We now have to have clever idiots. So they started to teach you to read and write. And then they produce you as a product to operate in a society that they are steering. But they only teach you what they want you to know. Nothing more. And they want you to be obedient. So if you step out of line, then you'll be called a troublemaker. And this is what happens to children as well in school. Children, they have a natural disdain for authority. Oh, fuck, I'm an adult. I don't like being told what to do. When children get expelled from schools, I would suggest to you that the children that did get expelled from school for rebelling against authority were wise. The people that never went to school, they are still functioning in society. They are still living. You know, and anyway, that system's falling apart. And then the internet turns up, but they needed the internet, to build this new system that this new Tower of Babel. Just utter confusion. And if you want evidence of the Tower of Babel, just look at this coronavirus thing. Look at what the governments are saying. They don't know their arses from their elbows. You know, the confusion is so evident, and that's the leadership. So they've never been able to lead. They've always required that the population remains acquiescent. Just give them bread and circuses, and we'll control them, but we won't really tell them what we're doing. But we'll tell them what we're doing, but we'll obscure it. So you've got Agenda 2030 from the UN and all the rest of it. And the man in the street doesn't read any of that. He's busy with beer and circuses. By design. But the internet came, and then people started asking questions. Then you got 9/11, big fucking ritual. Me personally, 9/11, was it good or evil? the World Trade Center, the center of greed, of wealth, money, a corrupt system, and that was the palace. And they took the palace out, turned it to dust. What was going on there? But people started waking up. World Trade Center 7 collapsed. It wasn't hit by anything, it was on fire. Grenville burnt in London was it last year or a couple of years ago? Not really a massive skyscraper, but I don't know if it's about the same size as World Trade Center Building 7, but it was a tower as opposed to a long office block. It didn't collapse, it fucking burnt out. So everyone starts asking questions, they're on the internet, and then the conspiracy theorist is born. You can research all that stuff if you want. You'll just drive yourself nuts doing it. But if you was to acknowledge to yourself that something is seriously wrong with the way things are being done on this planet, and then you've got to look at yourself. What part are you playing in it? Do you vote? Do you acquiesce? Do you wear your mask? Your persona? Are you trying to defeat the COVID, in Hebrew, the divine presence? There is a war of consciousness. And if you keep people in a state of fear, they can't access the neocortex. They have difficulty using logic and reason, critical thinking. They can't do it. It's not because they're stupid. It's because they've been denied access. Access denied. Because their body is full of cortisol. It's a stress hormone, and it shuts down the higher regions of the brain and turns them into limbic system monsters or reptilian system monsters. You can't reason with them. They fly off the handle, get emotional. You can't reason with them, and it's horrid. And that's what they're doing. It's psychological warfare. Everything is psychological. Everything. You experience a reality, or this reality, inside you, not outside you. So that fact alone will tell you that everything is psychological. Psyche means soul. So you need to make sure that you are looking after your soul. Now, in the meantime, the people that are running this shit show behind the scenes, the people that run this, you will never see them on TV. They are well hidden. So blaming the likes of your political leaders is pointless. Blaming the bank managers is pointless. It's well beyond all that. And this has been going on for thousands of years. It's all part of their plan, is accumulate all the mass in one direction. And then to bribe humanity. The Great Reset, the redistribution of wealth, wipe out poverty. You can't wipe out poverty with money. You wipe out poverty with consciousness. You rise it. And when your consciousness is at a certain point, then you recognize that poverty has nothing to do with materialistic things. They will bribe humanity. They will promise that humanity peace and security, and the vast majority will take it, not understanding, because they have been deliberately kept in the dark. They are deliberately ignorant, or deliberately made ignorant. And when somebody like me or you, when you have your own realizations, if you haven't had them already, tries to shake their cage to wake them up, you can't do it. If my channel had 20,000 followers, I'd be doing something wrong. Because this is not a popularity contest. It's more important than that. I will leave my channel up. But there's some work that I need to do. But that will involve me, how do I put it, socially distancing myself. In other words, removing myself from the affairs of humanity, to go and play in the affairs of the gods, to merge with the right side. Now, for those of you that have come from a Christian background or a religious background, you might have inherited the information that Saturn is Satan. Yeah. They call evil good and good evil. But this conversation is pretty deep. Now, don't be fooled, because everything you need is within, and everything you need externally will be provided. And it's that simple. There's something that I want to do, and I'm slowly achieving it. It's not a race or anything like that. Now, if I won, let's say I was bequeathed with £100,000, then I could get what I want to do done very quickly, and I'd still have loads of money left over. But it's not about money. It's about time, or timing. And Kronos, that old crony, is in charge of time, and that's Saturn. There's things I could tell you, but I won't, because it would be like opening your Christmas presents. Now, I've shared some of these things with someone close to me, and one person who I email reasonably regularly. But things are happening, and I'm aware of them. And it's this awareness, and the more aware you become, the more these things happen. And as they happen, it will kind of freak you out a little bit. But it's all good. Don't be fooled by the bribes. Don't be fooled by the promises. You have to find peace and security within yourself. It's there. It's always been there. And when you find it, it's found you. Now, the promise of wealth, money from government is going to be a lie, because they are incapable of controlling this reality, much as they like to pretend to, with all their technology. Technology. Technical, no means no, and logi means word. It's Greek. The word consciousness. techno-consciousness. One solar flare from the sun and all their technology's garbage. It's gone. No more smartphones, iPhones, iPads. Everything they've given humanity is just a piss poor copy of what exists inside. What exists inside manifests outside. When you find that inside, then you'll recognize how piss poor it is, or what a crap copy it is, and you won't fall for it. But those that don't have ears to hear, those that don't have eyes to see, they will fall for it because they don't know anything else. So that's the purpose of me making these videos. Now I know I'm a bit brash, and I swear, and I smoke. We all have our karma. And I would suggest to most of you that I probably had a lot more karma than you. Now karma, don't have the Western interpretation of the word karma. Karma is what you drag along behind you. That story you tell yourself. When the accuser reminds you of all the shit things you did. And it tells you it's all that you're naughty and you're no good and you're bad. And then you start to ask yourself the questions, am I really bad? And then you start cleaning the house, responding to the simple instructions, and all that energy starts moving, and it just starts coming out all over the place, as I described in my last video. You think you're going nuts, but it's all that energy coming out. That's karma. And you're shedding it. And then you have no more guilt, no more shame. And when somebody tries to shame you, has no effect, because they're blind and they're trying to pin the tail on the donkey. And there's no more donkey. That wild ass is gone, you see. Now I had an email, and the chap said you shouldn't be talking about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you know, the chakras and things like that, you know, because of the wicked, you know, and the Wicked Witch. The reason I mention those things is because you all know the story. So if I mention something to you in a passing comment, then be curious enough to go and watch the film, and then look for the esoteric. Don't watch the film to be entertained. Study it. It's teaching you something. Now a lot of truthers say, oh, Walt Disney, he's evil. I don't know if he is, but that's mankind's understanding of good and evil. That's not the universe's understanding of good and evil. You shift that energy up, you are good. You leave it down below, you are evil. That's how the universe understands it. So what your ego thinks is good or evil is of no consequence whatsoever. So, but they made these films, and they've encoded biblical stories into these films, into these old stories, these old children's fairy tales, and there's truth in there. And when you start to see the connections, and then you start to have your own inner experience, then you'll start to understand. And the world's a stage, and those films have been put out there purely for the people with eyes to see and ears to hear. When I'm doing these videos, I've got 180 odd subscribers. When I'm doing these videos, I'm not doing it to entertain a group. I'm speaking to the individual that can see and hear. I'm speaking to the individual that wants to see and wants to hear. I'm not entertaining a group. So if I'm speaking to 180